Coming up next is the Dr. Kim Taylor Show. Although you'll receive helpful advice from Dr. Kim, remember this is not to be construed as any form of psychotherapy, diagnosis or treatment, and cannot replace a therapeutic relationship with a mental health professional. You can listen live on the internet at drkimtaylorshow.com. So sit back and enjoy the show. Now, here's Dr. Kim.
There is no doubt that bullying is a problem in our schools. All you have to do is just listen to the news. But just how much of a problem is it? Well, according to the National Center for Educational Statistics, bullying rates in America show nearly 1 in 3 school-age children experience some level of bullying during their school years, either as the victim, the perpetrator, or both. And many of those who are not directly involved are witnessing other kids being bullied on a regular basis. Of those who are bullied, 64% do not report the bullying. Bottom line is that all children involved in bullying, whether they are bullied, bully others, or witness bullying, can be affected, and those effects can be very long-lasting. With children continually picking on others who they perceive to be different than them, bullying is even more of an issue for children who identify themselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender. So what exactly is bullying? Well, bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior that is intentional, and it involves a real or perceived imbalance of power. It can include making threats, spreading rumors, attacking someone physically, verbally, or through technology that happens on the internet, social networking, and via smartphones. It's true that bullying has been a part of schools and even workplaces for years. But the fact is that it's on the rise because of technology and social media. It has now expanded its reach into a whole new venue, allowing kids to send hurtful, ongoing messages to a much broader audience, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year. I'm sure we can all agree that schools should be a place where children can feel safe and secure, and a place where they are treated with respect and are respectful. So preventing and stopping bullying involves a commitment to working to create a safe environment where children can thrive socially and academically without the fear of being hurt. It's all about teaching respect. First, respect of self, and then to be respectful of others. Today, my guest is Cynthia Silverman. She is the Regional Director of the Anti-Defamation League here in the Santa Barbara Tri-Counties. She is joining us to answer some questions so that we can gain insight into what is being done and what is working to stop this bullying behavior from happening. And then also, later in the hour, we will be joined by Aja Mayrock. She herself was bullied, and she is here to tell her story and to share how she not only survived, but she has now thrived. So she has written a book called The Survival Guide to Bullying, and you will not want to miss her riveting story. So stay with me during the break, and I'll be right back to talk with my guests.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290. You're listening to Dr. Kim Taylor. Tune into the rebroadcast Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Or download the past shows on iTunes or YouTube by going to drkimtaylorshow.com. Here now is Dr. Kim.
My guest is Cynthia Silverman. She's from the Anti-Defamation League here in the Santa Barbara Tri-Counties, and she is the Executive Director there. So welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kim, for having me.
Do you know, in the news of late, it just seems to be filled with so many really horrid stories about youngsters who are being bullied, and even to the point that they're committing suicide. So has bullying become more prevalent or more severe recently?
I think that there's been an awareness that's come to the subject because of the suicides and because there's been a lot more publicity. I think bullying's always been a problem, but with the internet, bullying is something that can continue 24/7. So children aren't able to get away from being bullied. And when you're bullied on a schoolyard, you go home and you get away from it. But now with the internet, students are being bullied 24/7. So yes, it has become more of a problem with the internet.
How is this growth really leading people to perhaps use it more or do it more? Is there something else going on? Are people more angry? Are they more upset? Is there a reason, do you think, that kids are really out there bullying?
I think that it's been a little more stressful for students. I think with all of the problems that we've had on campuses with school shootings, school has become a more stressful place than it was when we were children. So we have seen a lot more bullying in the past few years, but we've also seen really fabulous responses from school systems, from government officials, from mayors. Our mayor, Helene Schneider, has done a lot, and Joyce Dudley, our DA, also has done a lot to combat bullying and to encourage schools and educators to stand up to it.
Can you speak a bit about why kids actually bully in the first place? Is it because of things that are happening at family? Because, of course, we know that some kids who come from some families, they get the role modeling that happens. Or is it really about other factors that are contributing to this also?
From the Anti-Defamation League's perspective, it's very important that we embrace differences. And there are times that people are fearful of differences. And we need to teach children that someone different than themselves is positive, and they want to relate to them and get to know them. So I think that as different kinds of problems happen in the school system, there are students who will take advantage of an imbalance of power. And bullying a lot is about an imbalance of power. And of course, I think bullying is also learned at home. If they've been bullied at home or felt that their parents were not as open and responsive to them, I think that also can be a problem.
Okay. And do you think also perhaps what they're watching in TV or on movies, that also contributes to that mentality of bullying others?
I think with all of the television and the violence that we're seeing, I think that bullying probably always existed with an imbalance of power, but I think with all the things that we're seeing on television, that it's much more acceptable to take things to the extreme. So where you might have seen, 30, 40 years ago, and children bullying by calling each other names or pushing some on the playground, but now we're seeing things on television which makes it more acceptable to push things to the limit.
Do you think that it's also in part that this is like the natural order of things, is that some kids or some people will always want to exert power, to show that they're kind of the leader, that they're the one that should be followed, and that's part of what is happening here?
I think that is one perspective, but I think it's really important. We see teachers sometimes say, oh, well, that's just the way it is. Oh, well, that's just how students relate to each other. And I think it's very unfortunate. We need to teach adults. We need to teach children. We need to teach everyone to stand up. So if you're a bystander, if you see someone being bullied and you stand by and watch, you're just as much a part of the problem. So we teach students and educators about becoming an ally and to stand up when you see it happening. It starts sometimes with a simple joke or name calling, and then it can accelerate into something more serious. So it's really important to really stop it at that early stage of name calling. And if you are not standing up and being an ally, then you are part of the problem. And that's what we teach educators and students.
Is there any truth to the fact that a lot of bullies come from families who perhaps the parents are too permissive or too strict, or that they have been victimized by other siblings within their families, or that there's a lack of warmth or involvement by the parents?
You named a number of different possibilities, but I think there are a number of different reasons that people bully each other. And it's not just students that bully each other, adults bully each other. So I think it can be an imbalance of power. It can be a modeling behavior that you've learned at home. But I think all of those reasons can contribute to why someone will bully. But again, the most important thing is that we educate students to be an ally, to stand up, to tell an adult to do something about it. So it's not as much for me right now of why it's happening, but how can we do something different? How can we educate students and educators and parents how to stand up and to stop it from happening?
So you just spoke about a lot of different ways in which we could really address this, whether it's teaching the parents to teach the kids, whether we're teaching the teachers and the educators to better watch out for what's going on and to make sure that they're watching kids and breaking things up, and teaching relationship skills, teaching how to be friends, etc. So there are a lot of things that need to be done at this point in time.
Absolutely. One of the favorite programs that I have that the Anti-Defamation League does in Santa Barbara and across the country is called the Miller Initiative. And we educate preschool educators and caregivers how not to instill bias in early childhood education. And if you don't begin at that early age to teach children to appreciate differences, then what you do is you have fear about the other. And so there are a number of programs that the ADL does starting at a very young age. And then in the middle school and high school, we have programs for cyber ally, becoming an ally. We teach schools about the rules of and the legalities of bullying, so that we make sure that everyone has a policy. So when there is a problem, there's a way to stand up to it.
So for a parent, let's kind of start there first. What does a parent need to look for, just as far as the warning signs, to really determine whether their child is being bullied?
I think one of the most important things, if your child doesn't want to go to school, you want to make sure that you ask them. It's very important to stay connected and have conversations with your children on a regular basis about what's happening in school, who their friends are. And I think social media, it's really important for parents to monitor their children with social media. Make sure you have access to their Facebook page. Make sure you have access to their Twitter accounts, because a lot of times these kinds of things are happening in social media, and the parents don't have any idea about it. The other thing we really encourage students to do is to tell a parent or to tell a teacher if they're bullied. And in the past, we used to call that tattletaling, but I think it's really important for students to be willing to report it to someone older who can help them handle the problem.
But for kids, a lot of times they're going to be so ashamed about what is happening that they might not tell their parents. They might not tell the people at school, because they're really feeling bad about what's going on, and they think it's something about them.
Absolutely. It's one of the problems with bullying. You say, why is it happening to me? Why, you take it as it's something that I'm doing wrong, and you feel guilty. And I'm sure Asia will talk a little bit about that. So if the student doesn't feel comfortable telling their parents, there are counselors in school. Tell a friend. Your friend might then tell a counselor. There are a lot of places that you can go now. A lot of the schools have anonymous ways to report bullying, so you don't even have to say who you are. So if you see bullying happening, you can put an anonymous report saying, I'm concerned about this. So schools have really taken this seriously, and they have a lot of ways now for students to stand up for themselves and for their fellow friends and students.
What are the actual effects of someone who is bullied?
One of my favorite lines comes from the DA Joyce Dudley, and she talks about her mother who would say, "Sticks and stones can break your bones, but names will never hurt you." And she says, actually, sticks and stones, your bones will heal, but names will always hurt you. So when I'll do a workshop for adults, I'll talk about when was a time that you were bullied in your life, and I'll have people talk to each other. Adults will actually cry when they start talking about it. You remember when you were bullied. You remember as a child exactly where you were, the name of the bully. So it's something that never leaves you, where if you break a bone or if you break a toe or sprain something, those heal, but it never it doesn't heal when you've had that psychological impact of bullying. And I see it often in both students and adults. It's very impactful when you've had that happen to you.
And it's not just true that those who bully or who are bullied are the ones who are impacted. What we're finding is that the ones who bully are also impacted later in life, as well as those who watched it, who were the bystanders, who day after day watched friends or other kids being hurt and names called, et cetera, that they also are impacted later on in life.
Absolutely. It impacts everyone who's involved. I was in the post office in San Roque a couple of weeks ago, and there was a woman who was bullying the woman behind the counter, and she was getting pretty aggressive with her bullying, and she was getting to the point where she was probably going to get racist in her bullying. And I reached out and I patted her on the back and I said, that's really enough. And there were about 20 people in line, and everybody was so grateful that I'd said something, but no one was willing to stand up and say something. So I think the most important thing that we can do is when we see it happen to say something. It can be very simple. You don't have to confront them aggressively. You can just a simple touch, a simple word. But it's something that impacts you the rest of your life. You'll remember that time that you were bullied forever.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think it's so hard for people to stand up?
They're afraid. They're afraid that maybe the bully will bully them. I mean, if I stand up, maybe that bully will say something to me. I think people don't want to get involved. They want to stand aside and just say, well, if I just ignore it, it'll go away. But it's really important for everyone to stand up when they see bullying happening.
So what are going to be the best kinds of ways to intervene?
I think that you can say something. It depends on the situation. If someone's being physically bullied, students don't want to get in there and get in between. You want to tell a teacher. You want to tell an adult. You want to get someone who can help you. If it's if you're standing in a group and someone tells a joke that might be harmful to someone else, say, you know what? Ouch, that hurts. That's really uncomfortable for me to hear you say that. So there are simple ways to stop bullying at its earliest stages, which is with words. And I think ouch is a wonderful tool for stopping someone from saying something. It's like, ouch, that hurt me. That probably hurt the person you did it to.
Mm-hmm. And what is going to be the best way for schools? What are schools doing? What is the most effective way to really address this problem and to stop the bullying?
The most important thing is to have policies in place so when something does happen. We had a situation that involved four of the middle schools in Santa Barbara, and 3 of them had bullying policies and 1 of them didn't. And this was a cyberbullying on Facebook case. And we quickly said, let's help you get a cyberbullying policy in place because there isn't anything you can do if you don't have a policy. The other thing is the terrain is changing constantly. So you want to keep up on what the current laws are, what the current situation is, because a lot of times schools don't know what to do because things are changing so quickly in the laws with bullying.
And that does include with the cyberbullying, that there are more laws in place to deal with the cyberbullying these days than there are in the actual physical and verbal bullying that's happening within the schools, correct?
Absolutely, because cyberbullying is such a problem. It's just, is it the school's responsibility? If it happens at home, then the school doesn't want to take responsibility. But we're finding that if the schools aren't willing to stand up and have policies in place, then it's harder to deal with the problem. So cyberbullying cyberbullying has taken bullying to a whole nother level. The ADL was very involved in getting the KKK to be unmasked, to have to take their masks off. And that's one thing that we're working hard on. Cyberbullying can be anonymous. You don't have to say who you are. And so it's much easier to say something to someone when they don't know who you are, or it's not to their face. So it's very important that we continue to work with internet companies. ADL works closely with all of the online companies to establish policies of best practices to help them take down information and stand up. And it's like I said, it's a terrain that's constantly moving, and we're really needing to stay on top of it.
I'm here with Cynthia Silverman from the Anti-Defamation League, and we are talking about how to stop and how to prevent bullying, and I'll be right back after these short breaks.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290. You're listening to Dr. Kim Taylor. Tune into the rebroadcast Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Or download the past shows on iTunes or YouTube by going to drkimtaylorshow.com. Here now is Dr. Kim.
If you are just joining me, my guest is Cynthia Silverman from the Anti-Defamation League, and we're talking about how to protect and prevent bullying in schools and through the social media. Cynthia, this issue has really exploded in the news, and there's all sorts of stories about how even celebrities now are coming up, and they're talking about what has happened to them. So they're standing up against this. Do you think that that's also effective in trying to stop this and bring attention to this issue?
I think it's very important that people who are known are willing to stand up and talk about how it's happened to them. I think that really helps younger people who may be in being bullied at the time to say, oh, here's someone that I know and I idolize, and they're talking about their own experience. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. I think the more it's out in the open, the better it's going to be for understanding and prevention.
And what can parents do if their child is being bullied? What are the important steps that they can take?
I think the most important thing is to really pay attention to your child, to have conversations with your child, to find out what is going on at school, what their relationships are like, who their friends are, so you make sure they aren't being bullied. But if they are, the first thing that you would want to do is go talk to the school, go straight to the principal and say, look, I'm concerned. My child says this is happening. And schools have policies in place, and they're taking it very seriously. You don't see the schools just saying, oh, that's, what happens in childhood. They're really taking it very seriously and will respond. If you don't get the response that you want from a school, there are other avenues. You can call the ADL. If a school's not responding, we'll go in and talk to them. We know all of the principals. We have a great program in the schools called No Place for Hate, and we have a relationship with every principal and educator, and we'll have a conversation with them about the concerns of a parent. We don't get as many calls as we used to. I used to talk about Santa Barbara being my bullying county, and the schools are handling it really well now. I think that the entire county takes this really seriously.
Okay. And I think also that parents can really work towards helping their kids find something else that they are good at, and to really help to increase their self-esteem by trying to empower them to get involved with things that actually they're good at, or that they have a strength in, and that they start to learn that even though others may say things about them, that it's important for the parents to teach that no one else can define you, that it's really important for each child to know that in the end, they have to be able to define themselves. And for kids to be able to hold on to that and know that they can move through this and live through this and come out the other end, I think is a very important aspect of what parents can do also.
Absolutely. I think that in an ideal world, parents would have that for themselves too. And it's not always that parents can understand their own identity. And so there are times where they don't have the self-esteem and they don't have the tools for handling these kinds of problems. But I agree, in an ideal world, that's parents would be able to really build children's self-esteem so that these kinds of things wouldn't be happening. But again, I cannot stress enough, so much of bullying has to do with fear of the other, fear of something different. So stressing that inclusivity and respect and differences are a positive thing, and you really want to introduce your child to a lot of different things so that they won't be fearful when there's someone different than they are.
Right. So lastly, what should parents do if their kids are the ones who are bullying others?
That's a good question, because a lot of times we've had some incidents with some cyberbullying incidents lately in which I've sat down with the parents, and the parents really have had a hard time accepting that their child is a bully. So it's not always easy to get the parents to recognize that their child is a bully. I think the best way to do that, we'll go into schools and we won't deal directly with the person who is the bully, but we'll work with all of the other students to teach them to stand up so that that bully doesn't have a ground to be doing what he or she is doing. I think it's a hard thing for parents. We've had parents bring students in, and we've sat with them and just talked to them about why this is uncomfortable, why name calling is such a terrible thing to do. So there are a lot of places. There are clubs in schools. There are the ADL. There are a lot of different organizations that will help students who are not as accepting and not as respectful to learn why it's so important that you do this.
Okay. Have you found exactly what is the most effective in the school-based programs? That what is really working now that might not have been working in the past, but that really tends to make this happen and make this click so that the people who are bullying get it, the people who are the ones being bullied get it, that everybody's more aware?
Mm-hmm. One of our best programs, and actually we were just at Peabody Elementary doing classes for sixth graders. We have workshops that we do. And it's important to teach the students to stand up, because bullies can only do what they're doing if everyone else stands around and allows them to. But if a group says, this is unacceptable, we're not going to put up with that, then students will stop doing it. It's when everyone cowers and the balance of power is in their favor. So becoming an ally is such an important part of teaching everyone how to stop bullying.
Okay. We are going to take a short break here, but when we come back, I'm going to bring on Asia Mayrock. She is a young woman. I think she's 19. She's 19 years old now. She's the author of the Survival Guide to Bullying, and she has written this book. She says it is written by a kid for a kid, and she is going to tell her story about growing up in the schools and being bullied and what she was able to do with this. So I'm very happy to have her join us, and she will be right here right after the break.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290. You're listening to Dr. Kim Taylor. Tune into the rebroadcast Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Or download the past shows on iTunes or YouTube by going to drkimtaylorshow.com. Here now is Dr. Kim.
Today, if you are just joining us, my guests are Cynthia Silverman from the Anti-Defamation League, and now coming on is Asia Mayrock. She's a young author of the book called The Survival Guide to Bullying. And I just want to welcome you to the program, Asia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and thank you very much for not only speaking up, but then writing about this so that all the other kids out there can hear your story too. So let's get into your story. In one of your chapters, you talk about how to deal, and you talk about finding the light at the end of the tunnel. Because for you, it sounds like your experience started very young, and you had to find your own way to really deal with all of the bullies in your life. So what was it for you? What was the beginning for you about finding your way out of something like this?
Yes, the beginning really was discovering my creativity. At a young age, I was lucky enough to discover that I loved to write. I loved to tell stories and to act. And so while I was getting bullied, I actually started writing poetry and rap and short stories. And they didn't have anything to do with bullying, but they were an incredible outlet and channel for my frustrations and my feelings. And then when I was 14, I entered the 10-10-10 competition in our very own Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because in that moment, I realized that I loved to tell stories, I loved to write, and that I realized that this was something that perhaps I could even continue to pursue. So creativity became this really big outlet in my life that I actually wrote an entire chapter on it in my book, and it's called Creativity, and it teaches kids how to discover their creativity, and it urges them to find what they like and to put everything into that. It can be art, it can be science, it can be technology, it can be sports. But I really try to show kids that everyone is creative, and it's just about finding that one thing, like I found my thing.
So how did you deal with the feelings that you were having and feeling like you had no friends? Because you speak about that you felt like you didn't have friends at school. It wasn't a safe place for you. You actually had chapters in your book that you talk about how to stay safe in school when you feel so unsafe. So how did you learn to deal so effectively with these feelings?
Yes, it took many years to, as you mentioned, find that light at the end of the tunnel, or even to see that flickering of the light. I would say that the first time that I really found that light was when I was about to move from New York, and it was my graduation in middle school. And I was sitting on a bench, and I remember thinking, how will I ever move past this? How will I ever find friends and get over this part of my life? And I remember so perfectly, there was this big gust of wind, and in that wind, I heard the two words, something bigger. And I write about this in the last chapter of my book. I don't know where that came from, but I decided to trust those two words. I decided to trust in something bigger, that all of this that happened to me was meant for something bigger, was meant to somehow help kids, to somehow make a difference. And those two words really fueled me and my journey for years to come.
This is what I love about your book, and what you have to say is that your message is really loud and clear, where you're just really saying, do not let the bullies define who you are, and that the battle of this is really won from the inside out.
Yes. Absolutely. This is something that I'm so happy you brought up, and something that I stress, because I think it's important to remember to not let bullying or any bully define you or to affect your future. It's something I mention a lot about not just surviving bullying, but thriving, being your own superhero and creating that dream life that you have for yourself. I've realized that if you let a bully or a bullying situation affect your success in school, affect your future, affect your life, then you're letting the bullies win. And that's something that I hope that kids will get from my book, that it is won from the inside out, and to not let any bully or any bullying situation define you.
And one of the tips that you give, because you give a lot of survival tips throughout your book, and you really say that you cannot control what other people say about you. You can only control how you feel and think about yourself.
Yes. That is something that took me a while to realize, and something that I made sure to make clear in the book. There's a quote that I love by a rapper named Kid Cudi, and his quote is, "In the end, they'll judge me anyway, so whatever." And
I love it.
Yes,
I
it's
love
one of
it.
my favorite quotes.
Uh-huh.
And I think that, it's very relatable to kids because it is a rapper. It is someone that is in their media field of what they look up to and aspire to. But I think it's something very important to remember. You are never going to be able to control what other people say or think about you. And it's important to not let that jeopardize your success in school, your success in your life. Go forth and join that club in school, even if people think it's not cool. Go forth and join that sports team, even if you don't think that you're great at sports. Because no matter what you do, you're going to be judged. And you can't let that affect your future and the success that you want for yourself.
Okay. When you talk about all of the bullying that you went through, you said that the cyberbullying was particularly vicious, and it really took it to a whole new level for you because, as you said, you couldn't get rid of it. You couldn't escape it. It was just always there. What are the things that you would say to other kids right now about cyberbullying?
Yes. I would say that cyberbullying, in my opinion, is the most dangerous kind of bullying. And as I heard you mention earlier in the show, cyberbullying is 24/7. It used to be that you get bullied at school, you go home. Maybe you're bullied in the neighborhood, but you usually are safe in the confines of your home from bullying. But now it is 24/7. And the anonymous aspect of cyberbullying is frightening. It's all-consuming, and it's something that affects, kids in many ages, unfortunately. What I would tell kids, and something that I talk about, in the cyberbullying chapter of my book, is you need to take action. You need to be your own superhero. When a cyberbullying incident first occurs, take pictures of everything. You need to have evidence, and you need to be able to report it. And I really urge kids to tell someone, to tell a parent, to tell a teacher, a principal, someone that is trustworthy and someone that can take action. And then the next step that I did personally and that I really suggest to all kids is to go dark or go semi-dark, which really means, taking a break from social media, whether it's just the platforms that you were bullied on, which is semi-dark, or going completely dark, which is just taking like a vacation from all social media in order to protect yourself at the fullest.
So who helped you to really follow all of this and to focus yourself so that you were not defined by others? What helped you and who helped you?
I would say in terms of what helped me, it was absolutely my creativity and that pivotal moment in my life with the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. In terms of who helped me, as a kid being bullied, I heard you mention before, different celebrities that were coming out and talking about their experiences being bullied, and I think that is the most incredible thing. As a kid, I read stories of celebrities who were bullied and who were able to thrive, whether it was bullying or in other cases it was just hardships. That inspired me greatly, and that drove me to believe that there was that light at the end of the tunnel, that I could get through it. And then I just began pursuing my dreams and realizing that this is what I wanted to do, this is what I love to do, and I would have to put all of my feelings into it in order to pursue it. So I started entering competitions like the 10-10-10 and really just trying to build this dream of mine.
So there's always going to be just so much that we can all do to stop others from being cruel and to stop all of the bullying. And while we need to make efforts to help stop the bullying, I truly believe that even more efforts and time and commitment really should be made to help those who have been hurt, to help them turn around their lives and to find the silver lining. And in your book, you really speak about this too. And so what were the benefits of being bullied, if we can, be so bold as to say that there could be a silver lining here? What did it teach you about yourself?
Absolutely. The benefits of being bullied is something that I want every kid who's ever been bullied to discover for themselves. I think that this is important because it's finding that beauty in the darkest of moments. For me, I had so many benefits of being bullied, looking back on my experiences. I am now a much stronger person. I know that I can get through difficult times. I know that I am a determined person. I am driven to achieve my dreams. I am driven to help kids with this book. I am also a person that really appreciates kindness, because I know what it's like to be surrounded by unkind people. And so now whenever I find a great friend or I'm being shown kindness, it's incredible, and I appreciate it. Another benefit of my being bullied is I discovered my passion. I discovered my love for writing and telling stories. And then I would say the greatest benefit of all was this book, because, of course, I could never have written this book. I could never attempt to go and help kids with my book and my story if I had not been bullied, if I had not gone through it, and if I had not found that beauty in the darkest of my moments.
Mm-hmm. Asia is one of the most creative young women I've ever met, and I love your inspiration. I think it's important that we recognize that bullying is something that can be so negative that it's very, very difficult for people to find the positive in it. And it's wonderful that you talk about it in your book. But again, I want to emphasize it's important that we teach people to stand up so that it doesn't happen. We don't want people to have to find the light in the darkness. We really want them to be in the light and not have to get on the other side of it. Even though, Asia's an amazing woman. She's come through a lot. And so, yes. But not everyone's Asia. So there are kids that really aren't able to get to that place. And that's why we really need to teach everyone and the adults and the other kids to stand up, to make sure that it doesn't happen, because bullying is something that shouldn't happen. It shouldn't be something that makes us stronger. It's a situation that we really need to work to stop from happening.
Absolutely.
But
it is also wonderful to have stories, Asia, like yours, that people can hang on to, that you can maybe be that fresh breeze that blows in their life to let them know that there is hope, that there is something that they can do about it, that there is a life after school, which that's when life really starts. It's about sometimes getting through the school, but life really starts afterwards, and you have shown that. So the book is The Survival Guide for Those Who Are Being Bullied. I don't have the title right here. Asia, give me the right title and where they can find your book.
Yes, it is The Survival Guide to Bullying. It is an ebook, and it can be found on iBooks, Amazon Kindle, Nook, and a variety of different retailers. And it is only $4.99 because I wanted to be sure that every single kid in any situation was able to afford it.
Okay, great. So it is my hope that that all of this that is being shared right now will really help parents. It will help students. It will help to recognize the need to really address bullying and to find some ways to help end this, but to also help those that are being bullied to find their self, to find their life, to find that there is something else that they can do instead of focusing on this. So Cynthia Silverman, I want to thank you for being here. She's from the Anti-Defamation League here in Santa Barbara Tri-Counties. And Asia, thank you very much. She is a young
Thank
author, and I am sure you are up and coming, and I'm going to be watching out for you. And I will put all of the information and the contact info on my website. Is there a last word that you would like to say, Cindy?
I just wanted to mention we have a lot of materials, www.adl.org, and there's lots of materials for students, for educators, for parents on our website on bullying.
Okay, and thanks both of you for being here and for sharing all of your stories and all of your insight. You can go to my website, and I will have all of that contact info there. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor, and I will be right back with some closing comments.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
It's just so true that bullying affects all that are involved. Those who are bullied, those who bully others, and those who see bullying going on with others. And some of these effects can really last a lifetime. So if your child is having trouble at school or with friends as a result of bullying, there are resources online to help you to go through this process. Or even if you need to talk to a psychologist about how to help your own child to develop resilience and confidence so that they can be more successful both socially and at school and not be scarred by the cruelty of all of these others. It's really important to me that I pass this on, that I think it's really important that to not let them feel like a victim, but to find ways to empower them, to find themselves, to define themselves, and not allow them to be defined by these people. So we all really need to talk to our kids, and the best way to protect them from all of this bullying is to talk to them and keep an open line so that your kids do come to you and they share with you about what's going on. Because bottom line, children do rely on their parents, and they really need your help on issues that really matter to them the most. So if you need to learn about talking more to your kids, you can certainly go online. There are a lot of prevention websites, and I will list them on my website at drkimtaylorshow.com. Or you can also call me at 805-568-3700, and I will give you a referral to a mental health professional that can help you. So thank you for joining me, and I do hope that you will join me again next Thursday afternoon, where we're here live at 5, and once more we'll open up the hour. We'll answer your calls. We'll probably have a guest, and we'll just be talking here. So I hope that whatever's on your mind, you'll join us and you'll be here with us. Don't forget to listen to the rebroadcast right here at KZSB AM 1290. They're Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. You can also send any comments or questions to me at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. So meanwhile, have a great week, and until then, you can have the life you want. You just have to be willing to work for it, and above all else, stop waiting for other people to change first. When you change, other people will just have to change in response to you. Now take good care, and I will see you next week live at 5.